This guy. I don't even think I'm going to turn this into a highlight because I'm pretty sure this is just a lot of words. Just words. Not that I'm against words. I type a lot of words, but words generally say something. They have meaning, they have purpose. And when people are writing fluff, you can tell they're writing fluff. It's just words just to say words. So you act like you're saying stuff when you really aren't. Let's get Charles in here. A quick cursory
Google Cloud
glance.
Text-to-speech enable.
Right.
There is a lot coming to the game in Overwatch 2, Invasion. We've talked about the new story missions, the event mission, our new game mode Flashpoint, the new hero progression system,
fast-paced
as well as
esports
hero
shooter.
mastery missions, and we'll be talking about our
They're
newest support heroes
one-time,
On
one
top of these new
playthrough,
additions,
one and done.
There are also a lot of changes coming
missions.
to our current heroes next season. Nearly half of our heroes are getting
Highly
balanced
linear,
changes.
story-driven
I won't
on-rails
go over
experience
every change
for
in the season
their
here.
esports
They'll
shooter.
all be in the patch notes, but I'll go over some of the larger ones.
Yeah.
But two quick bits first. There was a lesson in the Lifeweaver release where our newest hero was interesting, but just wasn't strong enough on release, and we don't want to repeat
I mean, he
that.
does a shitload of healing.
For Overwatch 2, Invasion, our aim is to have our newest hero be exciting and impactful on day one.
That means he's going to be
It's not our
overpowered as
intent to
shit.
release a hero that's way overpowered, but we prefer that people play her because she brings value, not just because she's new. We will be watching her very closely, listening to player feedback, and will make early changes if necessary.
So it's a her.
We're making a change to the way we calculate damage against armor. Armor damage reduction is now additive with other sources of damage reduction and respects the current cap of 50%. It used to be multiplicative with damage reduction from abilities, creating situations where certain heroes were much more difficult to damage than intended since they were bypassing the damage reduction cap. This shouldn't be a big change and will mostly affect Ramatra and Orisa.
Yeah. People are bitching about Ramada right now. Orisa, I mean, is good, but people don't really play her. On to balance that, I mean, that was balance.
Okay, on to balance. One of the themes for balance changes this season is
Apparently there's
reacting
gonna be
to
a lot
some
of
of
them.
our recent tuning tweaks. We made several changes to Cassidy's magnetic grenade this season, and going forward, we'll be refining it in to address some of the extremes of the ability.
Not as bad as
Its
it was, but
maximum
it's still
range
kind
will
of
shorten quite a
janky
bit
as
with
shit.
a 1.5 second max travel time. Cassidy will also get a health buff and some changes to his damage fall.
He needs a health buff. I thought he's
We're
already
happy
at
with
250.
the power of Torbjorn's turrets following this season's change, but we'd like to increase
Maybe he's
the damage
reduced, and now
potential
he's
of his
being
primary
increased
fire,
again?
which will be getting a faster fire rate. We're also speeding up his weapon swap so that he's more effective at keeping his turret up. Soldier, 76 got quite a buff in Season 5.
So a couple things here is Torbjorn is not a Reaper. They're trying to turn Torbjorn into a Reaper, but that's probably because he's been displaced ever since he was turned into a DPS in Overwatch 1 from a builder, like Symmetra was. He's kind of lost his role, and they're basically just turning him into essentially what Reaper is. And that's unfortunate because he was actually kind of a unique hero as being a builder because there's only so many builders in the game. And now he's being turned back into... he's just being turned into a generic hero, which is a builder. There are so many different types of heroes, guys, in video games. Like, if you just go and take a look at, like, League of Legends, for instance, there's always going to be overlap between classes, between different heroes. But there is... they have distinct heroes, and they're different. Heroes of the Storm even had that. They have distinct and different heroes because you aren't just limited into like a generic, run and gun formula like Soldier 76, the most generic hero from Call of Duty you could ever imagine, right? There's all different sorts of in-betweens, and it seems like the more they try and balance the game, the more they're normalizing and not marginalizing making everything like each other. They're making everything like each other. There's a big word for that. I can't think of it right now. Anyways, they're making everything like each other. It's being whittled down into more and more and more generic heroes that do basically everything every other hero does. They had this problem in World of Warcraft, where they started giving every class, every character, the abilities from other classes and characters, and eventually they just end up with nothing, or they're a very generic clone of each other, and then when you're playing the character, it doesn't actually feel like you're playing anything different. Like with Battle Bits, where we talk about characters being... not characters, but weapons being unique and having gun differentiation between the different classes of sniper, shotgun, which doesn't exist, SMG, DMR, assault rifle, LMG, carbine, if you want to go that far, carbine, PDWs, and what's the other one? Can't think of that. And maybe it's just carbine and PDWs. You're whittling things down, like into smaller categories, but each one generally has a uniquely distinct different part to the class that makes it different from the other weapons. When you start generalizing everything and make it all like each other, it basically turns into laser rifles. I've just talked about this for probably close to 6 years at this point, back in the Fortnite, even maybe further back than that. Fortnite's where it became very evident, though. People want laser rifles. They just want every gun to be a laser, and that's it. Because they want to play... Kobox or whatever the fucking clicky game is, where you just shoot a pixel and then you win. And that's it. You just shoot the singular pixel and you win. They don't want mechanics attached to it, because then they actually have to think about what they're doing and not just work on muscle memory, and they become a great player regardless of what's happening in the game. I'm a firm believer in game mechanics, in that there's more than one ways of playing the game, more than one ways of winning, and just because you're playing a mechanical hero, or tactical or mechanical hero, instead of one where you just click a pixel and then you win, like Widowmaker, doesn't necessarily mean that you're not only you're worse, but you don't deserve to actually be rewarded for the kind of gameplay that you're playing. Obviously, the tactical heroes can get really, really... complicated, and they can also become very fun to play for a lot of people that love complicated heroes. I like complicated heroes. And you can't do that if everything is just a laser rifle. The kids it's like a general thing. If you're marketing to the most generic demographic ever, kids love the laser rifle. They just want the laser rifle, as I mentioned, because then you don't need to think. You just do what you've been doing for the last 20 years exactly the same way. And then you're like, oh, this is fun because I'm clicking heads and winning. My number's going up. And you don't actually need to learn or try really to do anything different. I'm not a fan. Like, obviously there should be, like in the case of MOBAs, I call them auto heroes. So basically people that primarily focus on just their auto attack. So just that muscle memory clicking. And I don't think they shouldn't exist. But at the same time, just like I don't use snipers, but I know snipers should exist in, like, for instance, Battle Bits. Characters that have technical expertise and complicated abilities and stuff should also exist in the game. It broadens the tapestry, the swath that you're making in your game. It makes characters feel unique and different. Generic laser rifle characters are the most generic characters in the game, and they don't actually lend themselves to good games, in my opinion. They're just there. There's something people can transfer their skills to, and they don't feel completely useless for the time they actually need to learn the game. Heroes of Storm had a shitload of different types of heroes, still does have a shitload of different types of heroes that play in different ways, but at the end of the day, they still have, like, Vala, which is just your generic Ashe from League of Legends, your generic auto character. They have generic characters, even though some of them are actually much more complicated than auto characters, like, is the thing of Ezos in League of Legends, which was a combination of, like, a spellcaster and an auto character. Ezreal, maybe it's Ezreal. In League of Legends, like, there's different characters. In Overwatch, it seems like they either forgot this, or they're basically just trying to pander to, I guess, the esports enthusiasts, which is just have a laser rifle character, and that's it. And they actually don't know what they want. They just want something that's fun. And they don't know what's fun, they just know what they can do well, and that means fun for them, because people oftentimes associate their KD with how much fun they're having, right? Your KD is how much fun you have, and that's a number. It has nothing to do with your emotional attachment or interest in the game. It has everything to do with your performance and a number that literally just goes up. And in some cases, in some games, for instance, Overwatch, they don't even consider the kill part of it. They don't consider limbs or damage. They only consider deaths. It's gotten even more basic than that, despite Overwatch being a very complicated game. Oftentimes, casters will only talk about deaths, and that's it. And that's fucking weird. But yeah, they've basically, because streamers have gotten to the point where they don't even look at the scoreboard, they just look at deaths. That's kind of tapered down, but when I started streaming Overwatch last fall, that was a big deal. Everyone just talked about deaths. Now it's starting to taper down again, but Yeah, it never used to be that way in Overwatch 1, mainly because you couldn't see deaths, but people hyper-focused on deaths, and still sometimes do, despite the amount of damage someone might be doing, despite the amount of limbs, healing that someone has gotten. They don't care. And limbs, by the way, by themselves aren't really useful because it's not the same thing even as killing blows. Killing blows or kills in most games are you finish the person off. And a limb just means you participated. It's an assist. The assist category, I don't even know what it fucking means in Overwatch. But limbs are basically what assists are in other games, which is you just damaged or helped with the kill. In most games, though, kills are basically you finishing the person off, which is a useful stat in and of itself because someone has to get the finishing blow in order, and that's a valuable thing. But at the same time, if all you're doing is getting the RNG to get the finishing blow, that doesn't mean anything either. So, like, it can be used with other stats like damage numbers, but in and of itself isn't really important. But if someone, is getting killing blows, that means they might be, especially a lot, that means they're chasing people down. And when the rest of the team isn't really doing that, or the limbs don't add up either, that means like solo kills are a really, really big deal. Or solo finishes, not even kills, solo finishes are a really big deal because that person chased someone down that needed to die. Anyways, getting off on tangents here as segues, but I do not like the idea that they make every character like every other character, so now we have Torbjorn becoming a Reaper, and Reaper is very, very generic, and the game doesn't need another Reaper. It could, Torbjorn can overlap, and he's always overlapped with Reaper. His right-click's always been kind of funky, though, which is his shotgun blast, but that feels like the way that he's going.
This season's change, but we'd like to increase the damage potential of his primary fire, which will be getting a faster fire rate. We're also speeding up his weapon swap so that he's more effective at keeping his turret up. Soldier, 76 got quite a buff in Season 5. We don't think he's oppressive.
He is
but
oppressive.
There's room to lower his damage output.
He's literally a laser rifle.
We'll be reducing the damage on his Helix rocket and slightly increasing the cost of his ULT. Lastly, we're continuing to make changes to Orisa. Her Fortify ability will now grant 125 bonus health, and the start of her damage fall-off will be slightly extended. We wanted to see how much the mid-season changes would bring her up before the armor damage reduction hit, and think she needs a bit more to compensate.
So, Overwatch, or Blizzard Overwatch balancing team oftentimes balances based off stats. So if a character is doing really well or is not played, they'll buff and nerf them based purely on those stats. And that's not necessarily good, because the way the Overwatch community works, especially now, as the game's starting to dwindle in terms of the amount of people are playing, they become more and more homogenized. That's the term I was looking for earlier. Homogenized. They become more and more like each other. People will click, and they'll think a hero is OP, and one that needs to be nerfed or is, needs to be buffed based on what casters are saying, based on social media, a consensus on social media. I don't even know if there's a term for this yet, but a lot of people adhere to groupthink, herd mentality, which is they'll think a character is OP simply because their caster told them it's OP and because it got upvotes on Twitter. Regardless of the fact that the character might actually just be perfectly fine, it's just a lot of people don't play her because she's an unpopular character. People just rather play something else, or something else is trending, as is usually the case with Overwatch. And so Orisa, apparently they think they need to buff her again, but she doesn't really need to be buffed. It's just she fell out of favor. Like Zarya, after she got nerfed, people stopped playing her because the casters were saying, oh my god, Zarya is so terrible. She's just worse than she was before. Zarya is still a good character, and occasionally you'll see she's played. She is very, very, very oppressive because a lot of people don't know when to actually shoot her. A lot of people don't know when to actually shoot at the Zarya. And as such, you end up in a case where she just exists and does a lot of damage because no one touches her. And obviously shouldn't always be the case, but that's generally the way the game goes. And people don't really seem to notice it because people are just looking for what's on social media. Anyways, Orisa, I don't think needs to be buffed. The other problem with what Blizzard oftentimes does is when they do something wrong, and they know it's wrong, Blizzard does not like admitting they are wrong. And what they will do is, if character is super strong, they'll nerf the character in another way. Because they know that Soldier became too powerful, and they're like, well, we better dial this back, but they don't want to admit they're wrong. So instead of nerfing his damage, nerfing his spread, which is the things that they increase, like undoing their buff or reducing their buff, they will instead go to a completely unrelated part of the kit, which is his rockets here, and go, oh, let's nerf rockets. Besides the fact that almost no one has problems with rockets, the problem with Soldier right now is the fact he's a laser rifle and has like no spread to him, and he just runs around, just insta-kills shit. Especially putting aside cheating, which seems to be very prevalent in Overwatch, which makes things worse because hit scanner are the easiest characters to cheat at. He just runs around and insta kills people. Like even just people that are really good will just insta kill people regardless, just because he does that much damage. He does a shitload of damage now. And they're like, no, let's nerf rockets. They did the same thing with Sojourn. What Sojourn needed to have changed was have the headshot damage removed from her railgun, and instead they changed her M1. The problem wasn't with her M1, with her normal fire. It was with her railgun, which was an instant shot hit scan ability, but it also has like a width to it, so it's not just like a single point. It has a width to it, so it's easier to hit. So like instead of reducing the size of the shot, the ability to hit with it, or reduce the headshot damage, or just remove headshot multipliers and still be a railgun, they decided we're going to change M1. And Sojourn, putting aside the fact that this is just kind of not played much, she's still a really good character. It's just people don't play her, especially with her fucking Soldier 76 running around. Just kind of, why would you bother with Sojourn when you have a hit scan, which is much easier to play than Sojourn is? And he got buffed. He didn't need a buff, and he got buffed. Yeah, exactly that. McCree doesn't need to be buffed, and he got buffed too. Very, very weird choices, but it could be intentional. It could be that Blizzard has went viral, I guess you could say, the opposite direction. So they're trying to generate publicity by doing wrong shit. I don't know if this is exactly right, but this is starting to feel this way. So, as with companies and just weird shit, you generate publicity by making infamy, right? You just say the wrong things, and then people will get flustered about it, and then they'll talk about your game, they'll talk about your product, because they know that you're doing something wrong. The problem with this is it's not sustainable, and people they'll just quit, and eventually just quit because you're making the wrong decisions. So I don't know whether or not that's true or not, but they seem to be touching up on hit scan characters that don't need to be touched at all. And like I'd say right now, the problem with the game is time to kill is actually too high. It's too high, and healing is too high. And both those things are one and the same, because healers need to be able to keep up with damage output, and damage output needs to be able to keep up with healing. And healing, I would actually say, is outstrips damage oftentimes. And what that means is we have an escalation, we have a power creep of time to kill and healing, and it kept going up. And now we're at this point basically where you just instantly die, and that's not good. That's not fun. That's not good. And lowering both of them would actually probably be pretty good for the game. Lowering damage across the board as well as healing across the board probably be good, so people are less instantly dead, and more possibly people are able to respond. So like slowing down the game a little bit might actually be beneficial, which is kind of weird, because from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2, they reduced how fast you get ults, but ults were like the damage. Ults were your ability to change the fight, and instead of making it so buttons change the fight, like gaining an ability, people playing around that ability, and it possibly changing the fight and tipping it, which Overwatch 1 was more like what I was describing. In Overwatch 2, they nerfed ultimates, but then they made characters just stronger, so your just normal damage is just stronger. Which I don't actually think. I think Overwatch 1 was a better way of going about things. It made things more exciting. The moments when people started popping ults is usually when, things change. It still does in Overwatch 2, but in general, when you have like a fucking soldier just running around just insta-giving to people, especially with the Mercy heal beam attached, which apparently is being changed, her damage boost is being changed, just running around insta-giving people because he breaks like the time to kill ratio. Yeah, just kind of weird. It's kind of weird, and it takes a lot of the fun out of the game. But yeah, but they don't want to do that once again, because that proves that like the time they spend on Overwatch 2, which they didn't mind you. I don't even know what they did between Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2. They said they did a lot of stuff for 4 years, and it doesn't appear that way, because in 4 years companies make entirely new games, and they presented a push mode, and we're getting characters. It kind of feels like they literally didn't even do anything in the game for a couple years. They didn't do anything at all. Feels like they didn't pick up development on Overwatch 2 until Overwatch 2 was released, and then they had some characters sitting around. Like there's like a 2-year mark in there, maybe 3 years, where they just didn't do anything with the game. Very, very weird. And now they are again after Overwatch 2 launched, or maybe it's the fact that we're actually keeping them honest. We're keeping them honest with their work, because if we notice stuff's not happening, we quit, right? And instead of them going, oh, stuff's being worked on in the background, despite it not being. Stuff's being worked on in the background. Now you actually, because it's released already, there's no excuse of just, we're saving content for Overwatch 2. They actually have to produce content now, which is kind of funny in and of itself, because that means you never want a company just to kind of lose oversight and just have an excuse for the entire time they're doing stuff. And that's kind of the way that Overwatch 1 and 2 went. They just went on vacation, it appears, for 4 years. 3 years, maybe.
While we're releasing a new support in Invasion, we're also making quite a few changes to our current support heroes. We're continuing to focus on Lifeweaver. We think he's in a much better state now than at his launch, but we'd like to focus on two aspects
very
of his
powerful
kit,
healer.
giving his ULT more impact and giving Lifeweaver himself more survivability.
I mean, his ult does a lot of damage.
Life's healing
It's
will
very,
now
very
be converted
powerful.
into overhealth,
Not damage
up to a
healing.
maximum of 100 health per player. He will also get added survivability by converting some of his health to shields and upping the amount of healing done by rejuvenating dash.
There's another way they could look at this. They could give the Tree of Life overall healing. They could give Tree of Life an overall healing, so it has a health pool, which is then used to heal anything around it, and everyone shares the health pool. So like chain heal. So the more people it's healing, the less healing it does. But if it's healing one hero, it'll actually do a lot of healing, or vice versa. It can go the opposite direction, which is kind of the way that it started out. Which is it applies an AoE heal to multiple people. I mean, chain heal, depending on more, you could change how it works. More people around it, the more healing it does, or maybe the less people around it, the more healing it does. There's a lot of different ways of doing it, instead of just literally just, hey, let's just give it a static HPS. There's a lot of game development, guys. There's a lot of different things you can do with game development. A lot of different things, a lot of different ways to tackle the same problem, and you can't always do that if you only look at things in like a one-dimensional perspective, and it does. It's like, hey, look, we got health, increase health, decrease health, increase health, decrease health. And there's like I've said, just like with Heroes of the Storm, with League of Legends, there's a lot of different ways to tackle the same problem, but they're like looking at this in like a one-dimensional way of doing so. And the problem with that is because they're just going to creep. It's just going to be power creep, and there's going to be no mechanics to work around. It's just A does more damage than B. B does more damage than A. You know, it's one of these things where it's a direct correlation between the two, because they don't give any mechanics or way for players to express themselves in the game to actually perform better than other players. It's just literally just a straightforward number, and that's not helpful. It doesn't make games fun, and at the same time, it will cause balancing issues later on, or everyone's just going to end up the same, and that's also very boring. Not fun. But that feels like what they're doing. And buffing
We're
heroes,
also making some changes
healers.
to Kiriko's protection Suzu. It will now heal slightly less, but when it cleanses a negative effect, it will do an additional burst of healing. The
'Cause she
slight
needed buffs.
knockback on Suzu is also being
Because she
removed.
fucking needed buffs,
We'd
guys.
like this ability to feel more pointed. We don't want players to feel like they have to hold it, and would like to reward them more for using it situationally.
Yeah, she definitely fucking did not need that. So healers are getting buffed again. Kiriko is a very strong healer already, and she's getting more buffs. Did she really need that? Suzu is already fucking broken as shit, because it gives you invulnerability for a second. A second of invulnerability is basically like an ult. It's 0.75 seconds, I believe. It's basically, it cuts out the center area of an ult in which you can actually like kill someone. It neuters it, it removes it from the game, and as such it gives healers time to catch up. And that's putting aside the fact that its ability to cleanse negative effects is very powerful to begin with. So, yeah. I guess they removed the slight knockback. Oh no, because that really hurts a lot of heroes. How many heroes are like melee where you have to get rid of? Even Genji's blade is not real melee. Genji's blade has a really long range. It's like 10 feet or something. You can get hit by that pretty far away, and good Genjis are able to min-max the distance and the range on mechanics like that. I don't know. That's kind of weird. I don't know why they needed it. So, oh no, they removed the knockback on it. Oh no, and then they buffed it. Like that was a trade-off to someone in Blizzard right now. It's like, let's buff Kiriko even more. Okay. Mercy got a nerf. It's not going to be enough,
We are planning tweaks for several of our other support heroes, but the last one I'll go over here is a reduction in Mercy's damage boost. It won't be a lot. We'll be reducing it from 30% to 25%.
Just to get people to stop bitching.
At this value, we feel that the ability will still feel effective while giving us room to rein in certain damage spikes.
No.
We're aware this is a
5%
contentious
not going
topic
to.
and are doing our best to be receptive to the various community opinions.
Yeah, 5%. Unless it gets over like a one-shot threshold, which I don't think anyone really can anymore. Yeah. No. Maybe that's working around a one-shot threshold. Yeah, nope, that did not fix Mercy. One of the problems with Mercy isn't necessarily just her damage boost, it's the fact she attaches to a character. It's her guardian angel. She attaches to a character, and she can literally fly around and basically untouched. And good Mercies are really, really good. It's not the same thing as a person that fucking heals around a corner with their beam. It's not the beam. It's not the 30% healing and 30% damage boost. Even though that is game breaking, it's the fact that she can run away when you try to kill her all the time. She can run all the time, and while still buffing whatever is hurting you. So she can run away while people are basically trying to kill you, and you'll die because she can basically run away better than you can kill her, whatever she's healing, or herself. And that's the problem, is the fact that she can just get away all the time. It's not, people say it's the damage boost. It's not. It's the fact you can't kill her. You can't finish off Mercy. She's very, very difficult to kill, and that's without her Q. She's very, very difficult to kill with Guardian Angel, Super Jump. Like, it goes into a completely different threshold, where you have people that are like, hey, Mercy only does 30% healing, and, you know, or whatever HPS is on her heal staff. She does 30% damage boost. Oh my god, that's so ridiculous, because now these characters are super strong. And you can't kill the healer. That's the problem, is you can't kill her. And it goes into a completely different threshold when you have Mercies that are capable of utilizing Super Jump properly and have their controls remapped, which are kind of like a hidden part of the game, to be perfectly honest. It's not the keys, it's rather the ability how she interacts. Her basic ability to interact with characters is actually really shit. And you can change it. You can change it in the settings menu, but you have to go into the character-specific setting menu. And then there's a lot of people I don't even think know Super Jump exists. It's the ability to basically fly further with Guardian Angel or pop yourself way up in the air. And even though it has a 2-second cooldown and the cooldown doesn't happen while you're using it, you can still remain in flight and inherit your momentum through spacebar and floating while the Super Jump is coming back down off cooldown. It is way too short, and it used to be longer, and then they rebuffed her after they nerfed her last time because the heals per second was too strong. I disagree about that. She's harder to kill now and more annoying than she was prior. But yeah, once again, they're just knee-jerk reacting to the community, and they think 5% is going to change anything. It's not. There's a lot of Mercy mains too.
There are a few other notable mentions. Sombra has a few small changes coming next season, but in Season 7, she'll debut her larger rework, complete with a new ability. Ramatra and Doomfist's blocks will now reduce stuck damage.
I don't actually think there's anything wrong with Sombra.
To Bastion's kit to help him feel more fluid and increase the potential for his tactical grenade.
As a segue. So Sombra, I guess, as people have been asking for a rework on her, I don't think she needs a rework. She's actually really strong the way she is. I don't know why they're reworking her. There's other characters that are, I guess, less desirable than her, like Reaper. Reaper works at low MMR where people basically don't pay attention. You can just walk in on your team lines. That doesn't at high MMR, though. Ramada and Doomfist blocks will now reduce stuck damage, which is, I believe, referencing McCree's grenade. Unless he misworded that. McCree's grenade, Tracer's ultimate, which it's an ultimate, and honestly I don't think that necessarily should be the case. It is a damage reduction ability though. And we're making changes to Bastion's kit to help him feel more fluid and increase. I mentioned this before. It was one of these things where I thought he should be able to turn into a turret, which is kind of what they did in Overwatch 2. But he should have been able to turn into a turret for a limited amount of time instead of Overwatch 1 where he's deployed. Maybe they did in Overwatch 1 at the end. But instead of being a turret deployed, he could actually deploy and be in place for a finite amount of time. They basically did that, where he turns into a tank now, but then removed his ability to heal, which he basically needs because he eats so much damage because he's so fat. Tank busters are very, very important, though, because tanks are important. Anyways, very interesting. So the Mercy knee-jerk, I'm pretty sure they didn't actually want to change Mercy, it sounds like, and they're giving 5% because people are bitching about it. I don't think this is going to change anything. It doesn't attack the root of the problem, which is Mercy's ability to survive everything. And she's very difficult to kill at high MMR. Very, very difficult to kill. She's harder to kill than a Genji is. Genjis at least have to use, like, wall climb, but then he's climbing a wall in a straight line. So even though he has a dash, which has an 8-second cooldown, and it's very fast, Mercy is harder to kill than Genji is because she's always flying, where Genji has to fucking climb a wall. And climbing a wall tends to be very, very predictable as you go straight up in a line. So, yeah, even though it's hard to kill him when he's doing that because it's weird and outside the ordinary and he moves around a lot when he's doing it, it's easier to kill than when Mercy is using her Guardian Angel. So I'd say probably the hardest hero in the game right now to kill is Mercy because she doesn't have any game mechanics that work around it. She has a 2-second cooldown on her game mechanic, and it is incredibly powerful. She flies better than Pharah does at all times. And that's ridiculous. And Echo flies better than Pharah anyways. But anyways, yeah, so I mentioned this before, guys. Like this, I don't know what they're doing. Like I said, it feels like they just lost like 3 years of development time between when they stopped developing for Overwatch 1 and when they released Overwatch 2. It feels like 3 years of time is just missing from there. Like the team didn't exist or something. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. But it feels an awful lot like they were on their own schedule and no one gave a shit. And now they're actually forced to produce work, and they're basically still milking what they had in the 4 years from Overwatch 1, but it honestly isn't even that much. They said it's the biggest content release update ever in Overwatch, and probably is, but how many times do you want to play, like, Star Watch or whatever it was? Yeah, like the shitty PvE mission? How many times do you want to play that? That's basically what this is going to be. The PvE missions are basically going to be the one and done, and it's not going to be the same thing as a Telltale game. One and done. And Telltale games, if you guys don't know what they are, is where you... very, very narrative, story-driven experience. It's like going through a storybook of a video game, and they're pretty good, but there's no replay value in any way, shape, or form. And they tell a really good story really well, but that's it. In this case, they're basically telling a shit story in Overwatch instead of making a competitive first-person. People want heroes. They want heroes. They want balancing changes. They want new maps, and they're making something that has limited replayability. It's basically an arcade game mode for Overwatch, and I don't know why they thought that was ever a good idea. They can say, oh, we're just making Titan finally. Yeah, you're not. You are literally attached to an esports shooter. You should go to a different game company if you want to make a different game. I mentioned this before. This is kind of the hard reality. They are employed to make Overwatch 2, not just make random shit that they attach to it. And you go, oh, it's going to be something that adds to the game. Sure it is. And League of Legends does it all the time, right? They introduce new games to their games. But at the end of the day, they have never once sacrificed their base game mode. They never once sacrificed the base game mode for League of Legends. League of Legends has always prioritized their game mode. Fortnite has done the same thing. Fortnite has a boatload of game modes. They have an absolute boatload of game modes. They have a bunch of different features that are added on to Fortnite. When Fortnite took off, they no longer prioritize Save the World. They're like, oh, well, I guess this didn't work. And they put it on a back burner. And they occasionally update it. But Fortnite is what makes and breaks the game. They know it. They know what makes and breaks their game. It is Fortnite in and of itself. And you can't just throw away your base game and then go, oh, I guess we're going to make PvE mode and then expect people to really enjoy your game when that's not why they're playing the game in the first. You aren't playing Overwatch because you want a highly linear, narrative-driven story experience at the expense of the esports shooter that everyone's playing the game for. Very, very, very weird. Yeah. Fucking weird shit, guys. Anyways, we're going to make a highlight of this. We're going to put it up there. I thought there wouldn't be as much content as there was. There's a good amount of talking points in here. Good shit. Less fluff. Actually, things in here, like I said, this is a knee-jerk response to the negativity surrounding Mercy right now. The other weird one is I really hope that this expansion does not have John Cena in it. There is some weird stuff going on Twitter right now, which is they're producing like stuff that makes it look like John Cena is going to be in the game, and it could be a meme, but it might also not be a meme. And nothing says desperate gimmick as much as, hey, let's just throw a random guy in real life that's trending in our demographic into the game. And like it must have been a knee-jerk response to what's happening in Dead by Daylight, which is they introduced Nicolas Cage, right? Everyone's like, oh my god, Nicolas Cage, wow! Putting aside the fact that it actually matches that game better because they introduce real-life people into their game. And Overwatch is kind of this universe of heroes, and John Cena is not really a hero in our universe, but, you know, I guess that's, yeah, like Dead by Daylight introduces, like, normal people into their video game. Not real people, but fictitious people, so it actually fit. Overwatch doesn't introduce normal people into their game and they become heroes. This would be basically the first one. They're already heroes. They basically became heroes. So, yeah, I don't really like absolutely desperate as shit is what that comes across. Everyone's going, oh my god, John Cena, guys, oh my god, John Cena. Despite the fact that if you add just random like COD characters like Nicki Minaj into your Nicki Minaj into your video game, it makes it look like a joke. And I guess it'll sell skins, it sure will, but it honestly just ruins the atmosphere of your game. And I love John Cena. I watched, what was it? Not Unbreakable. Shit. What was the series he was in? Expendables? No. The John Cena series. It's actually very good. He was a pretty good actor. I don't think most people could have actually figured that out. Yeah. Anything weird happened today? No. Close your tabs? No. You close your own tabs. As it turns out, you don't need to close your tabs. Ever. Anyways. Yeah. I don't think this is actually... it's kind of weird. And John Cena thing just adds more to it. I really hope not. It might actually be the case. And people are like, oh no, this hero's been in development for years, putting aside the fact he's not. The hero, by the way, could be anyone. The face attached to a hero does not need to be the character's kit, does not need to be how the character plays. You can take Sombra and replace Sombra and all the writing and like the list to her pronouns with a guy, and it wouldn't matter. You could replace with John Cena and it literally would not matter because it is just a model. At the end of the day, you can put someone's face on basically anything in a video game. You just swap out the old assets and replace them with new assets, and it's really not any different. It doesn't matter. Now, obviously, there's skins that need to be changed, but when you're introducing a hero, they have like 3 skins anyways, so it doesn't matter. It does not fucking matter. Anyways, we're gonna turn this into